A good place to start would be at the beginning. So what is SOC 2 compliance? Well, SOC stands for Service Organizations Controls. Think about it. No organization has the same configuration of people, processes, or even the environment. As a customer of a service organization, you want to be assured that the people dealing with your data have the best procedures in place. Think of any example where you provide personal information to a product, website, or even just to a company. You want the information to be protected and safeguarded, and that it's accessible and available only to the correct people. Next up, we're going to talk about the COSO framework. The COSO framework consists of 5 components with 3 specific internal objectives. These will be covered in the next section, so we're not going to get into detail about them now. But what it's important to know is that these are used to establish internal controls that will be integrated in the business processes. The framework provides a level of assurance to the organization, and it lets you know that they are ethically sound, transparent in their operating procedures, and that they are aligned with industry best practices. What is the control environment? Well, it consists of the entire scope of the environment in which the control activities take place. It's incredibly important not to limit the scope of this environment, as it may have an impact on one of the components of this framework. Next, we will talk about the trust service categories and the points of focus. The trust service categories are the basis that the organization will be audited on. Prior to the audit day itself, these categories will be defined between the auditor and the auditee. The categories include 5 main items. These are security, availability, confidentiality, processing integrity, and privacy. It's extremely important to note that security is the only mandatory category for the audit itself. It's also known as the common criteria, and we'll explain a lot more on this a bit later. It's extremely important to note that not all categories are relevant and required for SOC 2 certification. Only security is mandatory, and we will talk about this a bit later when we talk about the common criteria. To briefly summarize each criteria, security ensures that the informational systems are protected against unauthorized access and disclosure. These would include risk mitigating controls, such as controls around secure HR procedures, network monitoring tools, and device security. Availability. Essentially, this ensures that your informational systems are operational during normal operating hours. Think of controls such as the monitoring of your production network and availability reports. Other controls such as disaster recovery and backup would also be relevant here. Confidentiality ensures that information that's classified as confidential is secure and available only to authorized personnel. Controls here would be things such as identity management and access controls, as these ensure that information is only available to authorized personnel. Processing integrity. This criteria ensures that data is processed in a predictable manner. Essentially, it means that the information produced by you or your systems is accurate and reliable and free from error. This criteria would be particularly relevant if you are doing financial data or data processing within your organization. And finally, privacy. This is related and similar to confidentiality, but the big difference here is that the focus is on PII, which is personally identifiable information. This criteria examines and includes legal requirements for obtaining data and information and includes policy requirements. If your customers are storing PII, this may be a necessary criteria to include for your SOC 2 audit. We'll now talk about the certification bodies. SOC 2 is a set of attestation reports that can only be provided by a certified body. SOC 2 attestation can only be performed by a licensed CPA. Additionally, it's important to note that auditors or firms need to go through a review process every 3 years. This is a must in order to keep the status of an auditor.